Hello, I'm Eric the Quilter, and thank you for stopping by. Today, we're going to be working on adhering photos to canvas. And I don't know why I'm holding these. These are props. So the one I did earlier was this one of me as a little kid and my mother. I was so adorable. Frankly, I don't know what happened. That was so traumatic. The one we'll be doing in class today is this one. This one is actually an image my friend made in college, and I printed it on fabric. Now that we're not covering in this class, but we will be covering hopefully next month. That'll be the video. And before we get started on that, I wanted to remind everyone of our Patreon giveaway for May and June. This lovely 11 by 14 inch canvas, Legend of Zelda themed. I made it. I think it's stunning. I kind of want to keep it. Maybe I'll make another one. But the link for Patreon is down below. To qualify, you have to be in tiers 2 through 4, I believe. But I'll put all that information at the bottom. And the cutoff for registration is, I believe, June 10th. So, if you don't mind, we can go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with a blank canvas. And it's pre-primed. So I'm going to start by adding a layer of paint that matches the fabric on our image. It's actually going to be a little bit darker because I do want to blend more. For this, I used 3 different colors of acrylic paint. One was a light gray, one was a tan, and one was more of a cream color. You just want to go ahead and make sure your whole canvas is covered. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we will be doing a second coat. And especially in the middle, it doesn't have to be ideal because the image is going to cover it. So here I'm just going over the edges, just being thorough. So the one coat dried, and we're going to be putting on our second coat. This paint has been watered down a bit, just so some of the original paint will show through it. Again, I just really want a textured look to this. Maybe someday I'll add music to these. Maybe someday I'll make music to add to these. So our paint is dried, and I just have some Mod Podge that I mixed to match the color of the fabric as closely as I could. And it's about 95% Mod Podge, about 5% paint, so it's very translucent in nature. And we're just going to coat it. We want a nice even coating to stick our image to. Imagine what it would have been like if I didn't speed the video up. Oh, that would be atrocious. Appalling even. So now we have the image. It's just some stabilizer I've sewn on the back. So we're going to cut our little loose threads there. And we're going to coat the back of it with Mod Podge. And I still use my tinted Mod Podge, but you could absolutely use just plain clear Mod Podge for this. I use the gloss because it tends to make the images pop a little more. You just really want to make sure your piece is well coated with Mod Podge. You don't want to skimp at this point because you really want a full even seal when you attach it to the canvas, and your fingers will get sticky. Although as a teenager, I had very sticky fingers. You know what I'm saying? I've matured past that, of course, but... So anyways, we're going to center our image. Tell you about my teen years later. Center the image. I have a ruler just to make sure it's centered. I actually did a really good job of centering it the first time, which is astounding. Normally it takes about 4 or 5 goes to position it. So we're just going to smooth it out. Get as much air out from underneath as possible. That's part of the reason I sewed the stabilizer on the background, is so it would give me a very stable, flat surface to adhere. So now that it's dried, we're going to coat the surroundings with our tinted Mod Podge. I just throw it in cheap Tupperwares because it keeps for a while. Try not to get too much on your image. We will be blending over the edges of the image later, but it's best to do that in one go versus, you know, accidentally doing it several times during your project, which I've done. I mean, don't get me wrong. I can't judge. I just can't. So once it's dried, you're just going to do the same thing again, but this time with liquid latex. And we're just doing this because this is a little thicker, so it'll help blend our cut edges of the fabric in. And that's what I'm doing, kind of working it up against the edges. And this will dry pretty translucent. It'll dry almost transparent, but there is just a slight bit of color change to it. Kind of gives it a very minimally milky look to it. Just want to make sure there's really no like stiff peaks or anything in it, because they will dry that way. Once again, I have done that. I've screwed up several of these. Several dozen, actually. I fixed most of them, though. One I had to cut out of the actual canvas and just reframe the canvas. Or restretch the fabric over it, I mean. Yeah, we've all been there, I'm sure. Okay, so now that that's dried, we're going to do the same thing again. And just try to keep it as smooth as possible. Or if you want a very chunky look, you can absolutely go with that too. No judgment here. So just blend, and yeah, I dripped some on there because I'm a heathen. It's fine. So now that that's dried, the 2 layers, we're actually going to put on some more of our tinted Mod Podge, just to kind of blend it a bit. We'll just blend and smear. Just smear some more. I didn't realize how boring making these actually was. Time seems to go by a lot faster when you're doing it. So here I have my palette. Don't worry, it's clean. But I'm just going to mix some more paint, because I think I ran out, to match the fabric. And again, my palette's clean, it's just stained that way. I use Americana. My friend gave it to me. She's amazing. Thank you, Pat, if you're watching this. It doesn't have to match perfectly. Just enough where it'll look like it'll blend. Then I'm going to take some Liquitex, which is just their gel medium. You want to do about 5 times as much Liquitex to paint, because again, we want it to be translucent, not opaque. And just blend. Blend. Palette knives are amazing for this. I just love them. So I'm going to set off a little bit. I'm going to make it a little darker, just to kind of give myself a little more texture when I'm doing this. And we're just once again going to smear. Just smear. And then smear some more even. Just keep smearing till your heart's content. Actually, seriously, don't overwork this, because the more you overwork the gel medium, the less transparent it becomes. It starts to become a little milkier because you're working more air into it. So you do want to work this a minimal amount with your brush. And of course I got some on the painting because I'm a tart. I feel like Judy Garland singing Get Happy would be a good song to put to this. I wonder how much those licensing rights are. Who knows? I'm going to take a finer brush here just to kind of get in closer to the image. You can see I smeared a little bit. Just kind of wipe it with your finger. Just want to get in all the little nooks and crannies there. My God, how long did I do this for? Again, this project didn't feel that long when I did it, and this is even sped up to like, I want to say it's like 62% faster. Oh well. So we're going to coat the edges, because I personally do not like it when the edges of your canvas are a completely different color, or even just several shades off from your top coat. I don't know why, but my OCD kicks in and it's time to fix that. I meant the edges, not my OCD. I mean, therapy should help with the OCD, but so do some drugs. Pharmaceuticals that are prescribed, not recreational. So now that that's dried, I threw the extra gel medium with the paint into a little Tupperware so it wouldn't dry out. And right now we're going to start to stipple. So that's where you bounce the brush up and down, because we want to add some texture to it. Because I don't know if you could tell with the fabric that was sewn on the top and bottom. It's a very heavily textured, a very thick woven fabric. I'm pretty sure it was upholstery fabric. I have so much fabric, it's hard to tell these days. So just stipple, just bounce that brush up and down like, you're tapping A on Mario Kart when you're about to get some kind of bonus. So you can see the texture is still off. You kind of see the drops from the fabric. So we're going to take our Mod Podge first to just kind of help tint that gel medium back to more of a cream color. Again, layers of all these translucent parts are really what adds a lot of texture and depth and dimension, especially when you seal it at the end. it becomes a lot clearer that, you know, all these layers are very important. So now that that's dried, it takes about an hour to 2 hours between the gel medium to dry. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes for the Mod Podge to dry. We're just putting on more of the gel medium, just to once again try and even out a bit of it. And here I'm getting more onto the image just to kind of help soften the edges of it. Now the one I'm using right now is matte, because that one does dry more translucent than transparent than, say, the gloss does. So it'll help kind of like texture in the edges for me. Real Men Smear. Just want to soften up those corners a bit. You only want to go on about 3/4 of an inch, because you don't want to lose too much of the original image. So now that that's dried, you can see I still have some definition issues with the sides, so I'm going to use more liquid latex. I'm going to stipple it on a bit thicker, just to once again help soften up some of the breaks from where the fabric meets the canvas. So when you stipple like that, I like to drop the canvas because it does help remove some of the stiffer peaks when you use liquid latex. Because I've had sometimes some of those stiffer peaks kind of really jut out at me. So it's still just a little off in texture, so I'm just going to stipple some more Mod Podge. I'm sorry, this one's the Liquitex, the gel medium that we tinted on there. Stipple, stipple, stipple. I'm going to get a little bit more on the image to once again help soften up the transition from the image to the fabric and the canvas background. Gosh, I really need to put music on these. Okay, so that's dried. So I'm still gonna stipple over the whole exterior at this point. Just gonna provide a nice even coat. So we're back with our tinted Mod Podge. I'm almost out of it, which is fine, because we're almost done here. So we're just going to coat the whole thing with it. Again, I know the several layers seems probably slightly annoying, but it really does add quite a bit of texture and dimension. Even with something where they're all cream and tan based, it really makes it pop and just kind of gives it a more ethereal look. So I did mix more Mod Podge. Now we're just gonna smear it. So this one is even less paint than the original one. So this is probably only about 3% paint to about 97% Mod Podge, because this is where we're gonna get a little more on the image. So I don't want it to be as translucent. I want it to be closer to transparent. And soften up your edges, you know, get it in there. Really have some fun with it. So we're just going to do a bit of stippling around the edge of the image. with our tinted gel medium. So now that that's on there and that's dried, we're going to stipple with our Mod Podge again. I know, so many layers, trust me. But again, it doesn't feel that bad when you're doing it. Also, I tend to have about 3 or 4 of these pieces going at a time because I could bounce from one to the other, and then pretty much by the time I make the full rotation of them, the first one is dry. I don't know why my camera slipped down so much. But okay, so that's dry, and once again, we're gonna do the same thing. Again, I know it's tedious, but whatever you do, I've learned this lesson. Whatever you do, don't make your Mod Podge tinted with more paint to try and cut out having to do several layers. It really just does not work well. It doesn't blend well. If you're an expert painter, you can probably do it a lot easier. But I'm not an expert painter. I went to school for math, for Pete's sake. So here's just some gloss Mod Podge I buy by the gallon. I put in these cute little jam jars. And this is just a clear gloss. So this is just going over the whole thing. Make sure it's well coated. And make sure there's no pools of it though, because sometimes it gets little air bubbles and then it doesn't dry as clear. It dries milky. I've done it, trust me. I know, I've done it several times. I have done it several times. Oh no, I feel like that's copyright infringement on Jeopardy. I don't know, I'll come up with some music for you guys. One of these days. Okay, so that is all clear and dried, and it looks pretty gorgeous. I don't know why I touched it so aggressively, but I'm going to do one more coat of just the clear gloss. Part of that is because the image I used was embroidered and then printed on, so there was a lot of little holes and things in there. And I just really want to make sure it's well sealed before I put on the polyurethane. Okay, so we're just going to let that dry. And here we are. It looks stunning. It's fabulous. I just love it. So I signed it. I just used some green acrylic paint, but I don't like how flat that looks. So I'm just going to stipple just a little bit of the gel medium on top of it. And then just kind of even it out throughout the image. Or not even the whole image, just like around the edges there. And let it blend. Use it to blend. Blend it real good. Da 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 na 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 da 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 na 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 na. All right, so it's dried. I love the way that looks now. It looks much better. And the camera cord just like fell into the view, and I'm just garbage. Trust me, I'm getting better at filmmaking. So this is polyurethane by Duragloss. It's the water-based sealant. That brush is clean, I swear. It just lives as a green brush now. That's just how it feels right now. It's just green. So you want to make sure to evenly coat it. And I always make sure to get my edges. I always make sure my edges are polyurethaned as well. So I don't want any extra moisture seeping in there. But yeah, that's it. We're done. It's dried. It's fabulous. Yay. thank you all for stopping by today. I think our piece turned out quite lovely. And again, I will be showing you how to do the printing, and that'll be probably in June, hopefully at the latest July. So, and also to remind everyone, the Patreon contest giveaway, you have to submit a name for this. I believe the cutoff is June 10th to sign up for it, so you have some time. And I wanted to show you all what I'm currently working on. It's Villanelle. I love her. But thank you all for stopping by. Patreon is linked below. I hope you all enjoyed our crafting time. See ya.